Hi, folks. My name is Girish, Bali, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week. Today, we're going to talk about fitness, nutrition, fire within us. And what is that all about? We're going to talk about that later today. We're going to talk about transformation. These are the words that we'll be using today. Nutrition is another one. Exercise is another one. And willing power is also another one, which I'll get into that also. So let's talk to Brendan today, and we'll talk about what he does and how he transforms people from whatever to whatever, and that's your decision to make. So let's talk about that into the episode today. So Brendan, how are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming on my show and to talk about what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, the question is, what does back to basic mean to you?
I think it means stripping away all the noise and all these shortcuts and different ways of doing things and just get back to the fundamentals of what the body needs to grow, to prosper, to heal itself and repair. And I think it's different. It can be different for each individual, but there are also constants that everybody needs.
Yeah. Thank you again for explaining that in your basic way. So thank you for that. So before we get into the details of your podcast and everything else that you do, is nutrition a big, huge problem nowadays, or it has been a phenomenon for the last 5 to 10 years? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it goes back with, I think it really started to get bad back in the 60s. Actually, I'd put it as far back as that, where there's a scientist named Ansel Keys, and he had this theory that saturated fat was the cause of heart disease. And he falsified some data, cherry-picked some data, and to prove that canola oil and these spreads like I can't believe it's not butter and country crock were the answer, which caused this huge industry boom. It was great for agriculture and great for commerce, but unfortunately it skyrocketed heart disease and all kinds of other issues. And I think that's where things really got bad.
So the biggest problem that we face right now is heart disease. Is there any other problems that you think that we're facing right now? Maybe in the U.S. Sure. I'm just talking maybe.
Yeah, diabetes is huge, type 2. And then also, which is very closely related, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD. 50% of Americans are thought to end up with that by the time they turn 50. And that has a lot to do with the influx of corn syrup and other types of foods in our diet, wheat, grain, and corn primarily.
So how do we find out if we have that problem? Because I think diabetes and obese, I think that's a normal thing that we know what to do. What is the third thing that you mentioned, and what do we look for?
Yeah, so non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, if you have a blood work done, your liver enzymes, maybe your ALT and a couple other markers could indicate some issues. Sometimes they can actually biopsy the liver, and there may be some other ways that they can find this. But essentially, it looks similar to cirrhosis of the liver from drinking too much alcohol. People can get this without a drop of alcohol. And it has, probably the biggest contributor, again, is going to be high fructose corn syrup. But also just wheat, grain, corn in general are going to contribute. And I'm not saying never have those things at all. That's absurd unless you're celiacs. But by and large, I think too much of the diet contains those items. And that's part of where that influx is coming.
So thank you again, by the way, Brendan. So you're saying the corn syrup, right? You mentioned alcohol, mostly all alcohol has that, or some of it?
No, alcohol could have no corn syrup.
Okay.
But both have a similar effect on the liver.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that people understand that, and people need to read that if that's the case, and then then they'll have to make their choices if they want or don't want and what have you. So so thank you again for that, because that is a big, huge plus for certain people who drink and don't want to quit, and they want to say, let me minus out the corn syrup. So that is an option too.
Yeah. So alcohol can cause it in overconsumption, but also high fructose corn syrup, even fructose by itself, and too much sugar in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a similar end result for the liver from two completely non-related means. You got alcohol, which people are aware of. People are familiar with cirrhosis of the liver. I don't think people are as aware of how frequently it's happening without a drop of alcohol from the overconsumption of wheat grain and corn products and corn syrup.
Yeah. So thank you again, Brendan, for that. So do you think that if we exercise, I don't know, 2 hours a day, you think that's enough? Or
Of
do you
exercise?
think 15 minutes is enough?
For exercise, so I think it could vary wildly based on the individual and what their needs are. I try not to do more than 45 minutes, maybe 4 to 5 times a week. So 45 minutes to an hour should be plenty for most people. Depends on what you're doing. I really like strength training. I started with marathons and running, and it destroyed my body. But I think it can be a very positive thing for a lot of people. But for me, cardio just did not agree. It was destroying my joints. I ended up with knee surgery, metatarsal fractures, shin splints, piriformis issues. It was insane. And then when I quit running and focused on strength training, circuit training with weights safely, I went 8 years without a single injury. And was still able to maintain my body fat percentage, my muscle, and everything like that. So I really fell in love with strength training. But at the end of the day, I think whatever you enjoy, whatever you're motivated to do, and doesn't cause harm to your body, is a great exercise methodology. But I think by and large, strength training seems to have the most benefits. But not everybody get into it. Yeah.
So let me ask you that. Thank you again, by the way. So I have been told that when we're running on treadmills is not a good thing for your knees.
It may not be.
Is it because of speed, or is it just in general? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's kind of a pounding. Biomechanically, the treadmill is not the same as going outside.
No.
When you go outside, the pad of your foot hits, and you pull back with your hamstring, calf, and glute, and it pulls you through. But with the treadmill, since the belt is moving, it passively moves the foot backwards some. So it's a different biomechanical gait. It doesn't replicate human movement the same. Now, let's say you live in, Minnesota, and it's, there's 10 feet of snow outside, then the treadmill, it's probably better than nothing. But if I had to choose between a treadmill and going outside, 10 times out of 10, I'm going outside, or even walking in an indoor facility if I can, to replicate those natural biomechanical movements.
And then what about I'm sorry to interrupt you. And what about the exercise that, that you sit down and you start cycling too? So what are your thoughts on that part?
I think the cycle is, cycling, any kind of bike, Peloton, spin bike. I think those are great. That they're going to work both sides of the legs. They're going to get your cardio up. They're low impact. In fact, they're no impact. So I'm a fan of cycling if you like it. I get incredibly bored, and that burning sensation makes me, I just don't enjoy it. So I get pretty grumpy on the bike. I have a really, really nice road bike. I think I maybe ride 12 miles a year on it. It's like a $2,000 bike, but I don't enjoy it. But there are people that are crazy about it, and I think they should do it. I've done spin classes before, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. And we're gonna get to the other detailed stuff, but let me ask you this one last question, if you don't mind. So, maybe not last question, but maybe one of the questions. Do you think eating is more important than exercise, or the other way around?
If your goal is weight management, absolutely. Actually, any health goal, yes. I think your nutrition is 80% of it. That's why when I created my company, I didn't call it Fire Within Fitness and Nutrition. I intentionally called it Fire Within Nutrition and Fitness, because I do think that the nutrition is the most important part. It changes every single cell in your body. And without it, it doesn't matter what you do in the gym in terms of, are you going to lose weight? Are you going to grow muscle? Whatever it is your goal is. So I do think that nutrition is the most important part.
Yeah. So thank you again. So I was get into that name. So I guess the name is Fire Within. That that sounds like willpower, doesn't it? So can you explain how that name started, or
Yeah.
did the mission start first and then the name came later? What are your thoughts on that?
For me, it's this whole idea of transformation. If you know the story of the Firebird or the Phoenix, there's even,
Yes.
I mean, it's been in ballets, there's books about it, legends. There's this Firebird that basically turns to ash,
Mm,
dies. And then it just kind of completely transforms and comes back born anew.
mm,
And that's this premise between fire within is I think we could burn our old habits
mm,
and come back completely new. I think we can reinvent ourselves as often as we want to, as long as we
mm,
have the desire and the motivation. And I do
mm,
think it needs to be an intrinsic motivation. I don't think it could be somebody beating you and carrying a stick with a carrot on
mm,
in
mm,
front of you. I think in order for it to be a significant change that lasts, we have to find that intrinsic motivation, similar to Simon Sinek's Find Your Why.
mm,
People will say all the time, why do you want to do this health journey? Why do you want to lose weight? What's your goal? Your goal is not to lose weight. There's a reason for it.
mhm,
Well, maybe because you want more confidence. Why do you want more confidence? So you can perform better at work. Why is that important? You can provide for your family. Why is
mm,
that important? Because you have kids and you want to leave a good legacy. So your goal isn't to lose weight. Your goal is to lose a positive legacy. And that is a much stronger motivator and a driver to get
mm,
you to your goal. And
mm.
that's part of where that fire within part comes from.
Yeah. So thank you again. So let me ask you this question here, because there's other people talked about when they do blood tests and they get cholesterol, high cholesterol, right? We get the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, right? So how do we balance that out? Because how do we explain to people that even the good cholesterol is also needed in your body versus not the bad stuff only, right? To take away, because
Yeah.
it needs to balance out. So can you explain that?
Sure, and there's a couple angles at this. The first thing I want to talk about is what cholesterol's job in the body is. Cholesterol
Mm,
is a very good thing when it's balanced.
mm,
Cholesterol is actually what repairs your arterial walls. I'm going to say that again. Cholesterol repairs damage to your arteries.
mm,
The problem is when there's so much influx of bad foods, it gets over mobilized because the body can't keep up with the repair process. And it goes,
mm,
oh man, there is so much damage. There's so much coming in. It just sends a flood of them. And that's
mm,
when it starts to build up.
mm,
So the actual continuum of what's going on in your arteries is this. Typically, sugar and harmful oils like canola oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, all these oils that came about from Ansel Keys' research back in the 60s, and sugar damage the arterial wall. Sugar sticks to the proteins, actually breaks down the proteins in our arteries, and
mm,
then the body sends cholesterol to fix it. Cholesterol's the good guy. They're like the firefighters.
mm,
But what we did when we started cutting people open for heart surgery, we went, oh man, there's an atherosclerotic buildup. So
mm.
cholesterol must be bad. But that would be like blaming firefighters for starting a fire because they're at
That's
the
right.
scene of every fire.
Mm,
Now, we don't want too much cholesterol. That is bad.
mm,
But if we want to fix cholesterol, the best way to do that is to fix our insulin and our blood sugar levels, because sugars are the primary thing that are causing the damage.
mm,
And that's what's mobilizing cholesterol to fix it. And now we see this influx and this rise in our blood.
mm,
So minimizing junk sugars is one. Exercise helps too, because when your muscles contract, they soak up and use sugar in the blood and lower the amount of sugar floating through the bloodstream when you exercise.
mm,
So cardio and strength training do help lower sugar, which in turn is going to improve your cholesterol numbers.
mm.
So if you have high cholesterol, the number one thing I would look at is sugar, especially sugar from wheat, grain, and corn. And I don't just mean cane sugar. Any carbohydrate is converted to sugar. So
Mm.
for instance, we see all the time Juicy Juice is touting 100% juice, no sugar added. But here's
That's
the
right.
problem. It's all juice. It's just, it's all sugar. It's just in the
Oh,
form of
sure.
fructose. It's just as much sugar as soda. So when we start understanding that, and that's part of where carbs got such a bad rap, and I'm a fan of carbs. I think they're great and needed just from the
Mm,
right sources and the right amounts. But every 4 grams of carbohydrate can be converted to the equivalent of a teaspoon of sugar.
mm.
Um,
So
so
let me ask you this, right? Because I have been told many, many times in my young days that anything white, meaning salt and sugar, is not good, right?
Not
So,
necessarily.
what are your thoughts on that? Because I kind of disagree with that, right? So, what are your thoughts on that, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so that's a very broad thing, but the white diet was coined, and that does make sense from this angle. If it's all white processed cheese, white crackers, uh, chips, all those types of things, French fries, they're all these white foods with low nutrient content. That makes sense. And of course, sugar's not great for us either. But
Right.
salt, I think, in the right amounts is extremely important and needed. In fact, we've gone so far with that pendulum swing, excuse me, that people now aren't getting enough salt and they're not able to take the water that they're drinking and utilize it because their electrolytes are so low. So if you have really, really, really low sodium intake and magnesium and potassium and calcium intake, your body can't absorb and use water in the cell. Our cells have something called the sodium potassium pump, and that's needed to get the water into the cell for use and function. Something, and that even could impact your spine health. Our spines regenerate through osmosis. And if you don't have hydration and you don't have electrolytes, your body can't absorb and use that. So I think
But
we've gone so far on the other side to where it's a harmful thing. And some
Brendan,
stuff is good.
let me ask you this: if we have salt and if we have sugar every day,
Mhm.
whatever it is, right, and we exercise every day. When I say every day, I mean Monday through Sunday.
Yep.
The, so does that mean that we're balancing out the food and the burnings? Because the examples that we're giving is that maybe people are just not able to exercise. So let's cut down on eating habits
Yeah.
and be better and smart about it, right? Not really cutting down, but making smart decisions. What are your thoughts on that part?
You know, sugar is probably not something we want to go out of our way to have every day.
Right.
And large amounts of salt, of course, are a bad idea. Like if you go to Red Robin and you get a burger with their endless baskets of fries, you're looking at 2,600 milligrams of sodium, which is almost your entire day. That's problematic. But cooking with Himalayan pink sea salt on every meal is fine. I grind my own salt. And I think that's a good thing. There's even electrolyte powders in drinks like Liquid IV and elements that help people get sodium, especially endurance athletes. But
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying most of the foods have loaded of sugar. That's not what I'm saying. But
yeah,
most of the food or the fruits, right? They're very sweet.
yeah,
So that's the intake I'm talking about. So do
yeah.
you think?
So
Yeah.
I think 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day for most people is fine.
Mhm.
If you look at the types of fruit, it's going to change how much sugar. So
Yeah.
berries are very, very low in sugar and really high in fiber.
Mhm.
So you could almost go nuts with berries and you're going to do
Of
okay.
course.
Versus, a mango or a pineapple, it's completely loaded with sugar in the form of
Mm.
fructose.
Mm.
So we could still have those things, and I'm not advocating not to have them. Pineapple also has bromelain, which is great for breaking down protein and helping to absorb it. So they all have their place, but every serving you have shouldn't be a high fructose containing one. Balance
Yeah.
it out with a really
Yeah.
healthy one.
It's all about balancing it out throughout the day. So
Right.
yeah.
And it'll differ based on your activity level and your blood sugar and your hormones and what's going on.
Yeah. So Brendan, thank you again for explaining that and all the stuff. Now the services that you provide, it seems like you focus on exercise. Obviously, you focus on nutrition also, and then
Yeah.
you focus on the nutrition and fitness coaching. So, what are the three divisions, and how does that work for your services?
Yeah, so I do in person or online personal training, which also includes corrective exercise. So if people have joint issues like knee problems, low back problems, I'm certified to help exercise safely around that and even increase the healing rate of that. Now I can't diagnose; that's one of my limitations. But I can do most of the types of exercise you'd see in a PT office. So typically, when people are released from PT programs, I can help them continue those programs.
Mm.
But then I also do strength training for muscle building, weight loss, and all that type of thing. It's all catered specific to the individual. And then I
Mm.
do nutrition coaching, which is going over your intake, your sleep habits, your how you manage stress, supplement recommendations, meal timing, what type of approach is right for you. Is intermittent fasting a good idea for you or not? Not everybody is. Is keto a good idea? Probably not for most, but there are a few people where maybe it's helpful. So I can help them navigate what approach fits their hormones, their goals, their lifestyle, and their past history. And then I educate a lot on the types of foods that are going to cause inflammation and slow them down, which is wheat, grain, corn, soy, dairy, alcohol, and sugar, and how to implement some of that so that you're not deprived, and what are alternatives for some of those so you still enjoy what you eat all the time. And then I also have online courses. So I've got my online nutrition course. If somebody's like, hey, I'm not ready to commit to the price tag of working with somebody individually, I replicated myself on a course so they can take that at their own pace. And I'm very excited to announce I have a brand new online coaching program and an app that's being developed right now, and it should be ready by mid-March. That'll house, it'll have nutrition coaching, it'll have the strength training plans, every workout, every exercise for both body weight if you don't have equipment, gym equipment if you have it, or bands. It has correctives built in. If they want to do the 6-week Redemption Health Challenge, that'll have 6 weeks of group coaching calls. They'll get an hour with me. They'll get the app. They'll get all their workouts taken care of for 6 weeks of intense learning and making a difference in their body.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you again, Brendan, for explaining that. Now, can I just talk to you about podcasting, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Because it seems like you have a podcast too.
Yeah.
So you're like a peer to me. So all the people that you have interviewed, I think I know most of the people there. So it's great. So tell me about what you discuss in the show, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the Fire Within podcast is all about transformation. It's anything health, fitness, or nutrition related. We even had somebody on about financial health because that impacts the rest of your life. But primarily, it focuses on nutrition. It's going to be. I've had dietitians on, doctors. I've had people that have gone through incredible transformations with their own health, like losing massive amounts of weight. I had somebody that lost 90 pounds on. I lost 84 pounds before I got into this. I've also had pelvic floor physical therapists. I had somebody who was able to reverse type 2 diabetes without medicine. That was a fantastic episode. Naturopaths, functional blood work doctors, just giving what motivated them to get into their careers, what was the fire that got them to make a change and launch into a career helping others do the same. And it's just packed with ideas and tips and tricks to help improve your health with small habits day by day. And some of them are solo casts with me and my producer. We talk about building some of these strength courses, what we've learned from it, some of the research we've done. And it's just a phenomenal piece that people can have in their ear to have a positive impact and motivation and things to keep them pushing forward with their health journey.
Yeah. Thank you again, Brendan. And when you were telling about your story of how you lost weight and all that, it just brings my memories back because I want to say 4.5 years ago, I actually went through a certain way in my life. Then I went through a fitness freak show for almost a year, and I lost 45 pounds. So I know what work goes into that when we do that. And it's not easy. So if someone wants to go for it, you can contact me. You can contact Brendan. We'll guide you whatever way we can. But we want you to be healthy. We also want you to go to the doctors too, to do yearly checkups, because that is also definitely needed. Do your blood tests too. That is also needed, because people like Brendan will give you some guidance after when the report is there. So then you know where to focus on and what needs to be focused on. So at least he can guide you on that part. So Brendan, thank you again for that. So before we let you go, do you have any last words to all my viewers and my listeners? And how was your show and how was the journey on Back to Basics for you?
Yeah, I guess my advice to the listeners would be, whatever it is that you want to improve, there's always a way to get there. It does take some sacrifice. I think having a coach makes a big difference.
Yes.
There's a massive spike in success rate when you do have a coach, whether it's a paid coach, whether it's a friend, whether it's just somebody you look up to. That makes a big difference. But think not just the superficial goal. Try and ask yourself why that's important several layers down, and find out what really motivates you and drives you, and compare that to your actions. If I'm staring at a piece of chocolate cake and I go, I want to lose weight, if I want to leave a legacy for my kids, I got a baby coming September 8th, then that's a much stronger motivator and reason for me to not eat that cake. So try and compare your goals, your why, and where you'd eventually like to get to that. And I've really enjoyed being on the show. This has been great. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Brendan. Thank you again, and coming here and supporting me on my small podcast that I've started. And it's been great having you, and hopefully you'll guide me and support me along the way.
Yeah, and I'd love if anybody wants some free resources, they can go to firewithinnf.com. I got about 74 free recipes up there. All the podcasts are there and on every major platform. There's also a free habit evaluation tool you can take. That's on the homepage, where it'll give you a score in each section of health, and you'll know what to work on. And you can take that as many times as you want. And if they'd want to reach out to me, I'd love to talk to them as well. You can contact me through there.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll take the advantage of that, the questionnaire too. So thank you again for that, Brendan.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. So guys, we spoke with Brendan today, and we talked about the basics of nutrition, transformation, and the willpower and the fire within. And that's what we talked about. And we talked about the details of salt and sugar and what's good for you and what's not good for you, what to minus, what not to minus, alcohol, no alcohol. You make that decision, whatever you want, but Brendan is there to go and help. We all are here to help each other out, because that's what we need to do. Now, there is a quote of today from Back to Basics, and hopefully Brendan and my guest will like that quote. And the quote is, "The pain you feel today will be the strength you feel tomorrow." Because, exercise is definitely not the easiest thing in the world. We know that. But you know what? It'll give you results at the end of the day, at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that's what they say, right? And usually, what do I always say at my end of my episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next week on Back to Basics. Please comment all my episodes, because it will help me and guide me as to where my subjects are going to be on. So guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next week on Back to Basics. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
What we go through in life, and we all have our story, but it's how we react to it that defines our character. And in order for us to reach our full potential in life and live our dreams and follow our dreams, we have to get back to the basics and then grow from that. And in my opinion, I think we all have the ability to, and we can all reach full potential in life if we bet on ourselves, challenge ourselves, and